in a truly dynamic environment, truly dynamic organization. It is a big deal that people who are from all over the world come to a place like Canada and then join together, because we always do better as a group than we do as individuals. We know that forging a new life in a new country can be intimidating and can be alienating, and you lose half of your personality, not your personality, but half of your identity is gone, right? So, folks, I just want to honor you for having joined this BLACKTECH group. It's the right thing. It's the way that you keep yourself sane and make sure that you build a proper network, and show your capabilities to other people and have conversations that deal with your professional strengths, etc. So, as Kemi already mentioned, folks, I thrive on questions. If you've got questions, type them into the chat box at any time, please. Questions or comments. Kemi will be sort of the moderator. She will select questions that she can ask me to answer. She'll highlight them for me. I'm not going to be watching the chat box because I'm talking here, but now and again, I'm going to be stopping. I'm going to have 2 question pauses during my delivery this evening. And then we will obviously have the major question period at the end. And I hope that there are many, especially if you think it's a dumb question, please ask that one, okay? Because if it's not, it doesn't have to be a well-formulated question. It might be a tiny thing. I will help you to expand the issue in my answer. Please don't be shy. I was saying to Osita that now I know this audience is largely Nigerian in origin. I have been utterly impressed with the folks, the professionals from Africa that I've dealt with over the last decade. Just unbelievably polished, really driven to excel, and high work ethics. So it's always great to speak to a group like this. A little bit of background about myself. As Osita said, I am a South African by birth. I was educated there. My background is psychology. So I am deeply interested in the dynamics between people, to put it in a nutshell. What is it that makes it possible for one person to build rapport with another person? And then the second thing that I'm really interested in is language. I have a natural affinity for language, and I discovered in my experience that language is a 2-lane highway. The first thing with language is that, you talk to me, I talk to you, we transfer information. Okay, that's the obvious thing. But the second lane in the highway is this. If you really know what you're doing, you can build trust and rapport with other people quicker than the average person on the street. If you really know what you're doing, you can use your conversational skills to build trust, rapport, and to impact other people in such a way that they go, that was a great conversation. I wouldn't mind having another conversation with that person. So I'm going to be aiming fairly widely in the examples that I give you, because I know that there are people who who are currently employed and want to better themselves in their career. Then I know that in this audience, there are also people who are currently not employed and are looking for a job or an opportunity. And I know a third category, there are people who are employed, but in their mind, not optimally. So they would like to look for something better. And in all three of those cases, really good communication skills really, really matter, because they make you stand out. They differentiate you beyond your technical capabilities. I think we come from cultures, collectively speaking, including myself, where technical proficiency is often enough to be a differentiator in terms of who gets the job, who gets recognition. In a culture like Canada, technical proficiency is of course required, it's expected, but we live in a world here in Canada where everybody has some kind of a formal qualification of some sort. It's not rare here in Canada at all. And so technical proficiency alone will not really help you to differentiate yourself, especially by the time you approach middle management, etc. They look for people with exquisite soft skills. So that is a little bit of the context. I'm going to dive into this. Folks, I just want to warn you, this is dense. I did a bit of a review with Osita and Kemi last night, and we discussed that this is going to be dense concepts. I'm going to move relatively fast because I would want to chat with you and answer your questions. Please follow along. The session is being recorded, and I also sent supportive documents that you can utilize for later practice. So a few fundamentals here. The first thing is, and I believe this with every bone in my body, we teach people how to think of us. With every single action that you take, every single interaction that you have with other people, they form opinions about you, whether you like it or not. We're sort of at the mercy of other people's judgment. So that doesn't sound great, because I didn't know that I want to teach people how to think of me. I thought they'll just leave me alone and let me do my thing. No, they don't. They judge you. The second thing is, when people don't have full understanding of who you are and what it is that you can contribute and what it is that you are worth, and they haven't had a pair of eyes on your track record, they tend to make assumptions if they don't know you well, right? So that is a crisis, because the way people tend to make assumptions is they make safe assumptions. The assumptions that people make about strangers or about people that they don't know very well are often self-preserving in nature. Meaning that, imagine I just met Osita and we have a first conversation. I'm less likely to think, what a great guy. I assume that he's brilliant and he will exceed my expectations. I'm less likely to think that. No offense, Osita. It's nothing against you personally, but I'm more likely to think that, I'll see how he is. He seems reasonably nice, but you know what? We'll give it some time over time. And so it's a self-preserving decision that I make. My goal today is to shorten that reservation, to lessen the reservations that people have about you. The third thing is value looks different for everybody. What do I mean by that? Well, we want to present ourselves as valuable, right, to various stakeholders in an organization, new clients, a potential employer, etc. But we don't always know exactly how they construe value. So the third part of my conversation with you today is going to deal with how do you get the other guy talking so you can understand what they value. The first two parts in the presentation is going to be about making sure that when I speak, I land well on my audience. And the third part is going to be about, okay, what about the other 50%? Can I get them to talk to me and feel that it is a pleasant interaction? By the way, as I'm going along, I'm seeing that I started at about 52 attendees. We've got 71 now. So welcome to everybody that just signed in. Very welcome. My name is Markus van Aardt. So, folks, with those few fundamentals out of the way, I want to hit you with this. I want to talk to you about what happens with you when you are under pressure. And you might say, no, where does that fit in? Well, the whole thing is, when you're establishing a brand new career, or you're new in a company, or you're going for an interview, whether you don't have a job yet, or you want to interview towards a better job, or you meet with an important stakeholder in your organization, you feel that you're under the microscope. And I think it is really important that we understand precisely what happens with us when we feel that we are under the microscope. These three red buttons here, pressure, awareness, and physiology, I call them the unholy triumvirate. They are things that make you feel terrible, right? You perceive pressure. Say you go for an interview or you go for a meeting for the first time with a senior stakeholder. You perceive pressure. All of us do. Now, what happens to most organisms, and especially what happens with humans, because we are highly self-aware, we become extremely self-aware. We sort of start to think defensive thoughts like, I'm going to fail. She's going to think that I'm an idiot. I didn't say that correctly. Oh my goodness, I'm blushing, etc., etc. I didn't answer that question properly. So self-awareness becomes amplified. And now to make it worse, your body gets into the game as well. I wish I could get people to put up hands. How many of you have been nervous and you felt your palms sweating, you know? Or in my case, yeah, there goes the hands. Bingo. Thank you. Palms sweating. Pale people like me blush. Your heart beats faster. Your stomach churns, right? That is the effect of adrenaline in your body. Adrenaline is the chemical that gets you ready to basically run out of there and get yourself out of trouble, right? So you can say that if you can't take control of these three elements here, then you're in deep trouble. Now, there are two elements here. I mentioned demeanor or behavior and logic and language. If those three red elements are not dealt with effectively, it also impacts your behavior. Let me explain. I see people who practice with me, say for interviews or for a business conversation, because I'm a coach, we practice this, and the first thing that I see is people start talking faster when they're nervous, or they don't talk loudly enough. They sort of mumble a little bit, like they want to hide their mistakes. They're probably self-conscious about their accent and stuff like that. Their eye contact becomes super rigid. They sort of look at me between my eyes like they want to drill a hole there, or they don't look in my eyes at all. So behavior gets impacted by adrenaline. It does, and you can't help it. And the other thing is people's language becomes mangled. They start speaking in really long run-on sentences. They speed up, they talk faster, and very often they speak in circular arguments. So what I'm going to share with you today is that these elements here, pressure, awareness, and physiology, you can't do anything about that. That's just your body working as it was designed. Okay? You can't do anything directly about that. But you do have control over your demeanor or behavior, and you do have control over logic and language. So this is going to be a demeanor, behavior, logic, language talk, at least for the first little part. Because if I can get a grip on these two things here, you know, there's a, not literally, but there's a little guy inside my head. If I'm not doing well, it says to my pancreas, give Marcus a little bit more adrenaline, he's in trouble, right? And I'm rattling and my palms sweat more, etc. But the same little guy, when he sees me doing well, he goes, pancreas, stop the adrenaline. Marcus is okay, and you'll be just fine. He seems to be on his way. And so by choice, I can pick behaviors that make me feel better. And I can choose logic and language behaviors that make me feel more confident when I speak. So here we go. How do others perceive you? Well, you know, the thing is, unfortunately, the way people perceive you, that is the way that they'll treat you. But we've got behavioral control over how other people perceive us. We can, by choice, become more clear. We can, by choice, become more concise. And we can, by choice and through deliberation, become more memorable in our conversations. And I'm going to break each one of these out for you briefly. Just give me a sec. I just want to take a sip of water. So I'm going to get into these in detail, but high level. How I teach my clients is that being clear, there are many other issues that help you with being clear when you speak. But being clear, the three things that you can do to ensure that you speak as clearly as possible is to separate your words, strangely enough, to finish your words when you speak them, and to pace yourself, meaning the speed at which you speak. And the obvious benefits are that your clarity improves, it goes through the roof. You get more nonverbal feedback from the other person, because the clearer you are, the more little nods you get when you're speaking to the other person. And I'd much rather have a nod than somebody look at me like this, you know? So you want to get those little micro approvals, and it builds confidence in yourself. We can, by choice, become more concise. And I'm going to show you how you can talk about the subject matter that that is your areas of strength by framing and unpacking your thoughts piece by piece rather than just one long ramble. Because structure wins every time. Folks, I mean this honestly, and I don't want to get philosophical here, but if you've got person A and person B saying exactly the same thing, the person who delivers it in a more structured way will be more believable than the other one. Period. It's a fact. It's been proven over and over again. Structure creates credibility because you sound like you know what you're talking about. You buy yourself a little bit of time. You sound articulate and smart. And then to be memorable, that's the third part, is asking really good questions that gets the other person talking. But if you get the other person talking, you've also got to give them an indication that you're listening well. And you can then build on the conversation as you go along. I just want to check my time here. Okay. So let's get into each one of these in detail. So when it comes to clear speech, guys, I've got, I was wondering how I can do this. And I think this works well. Just to give you examples of what clear speech could sound like, and giving you an opportunity, once you review this, webinar, to actually go and practice this. I want to hear you, or I want you to listen to me say this sentence. Yesterday, I strolled down the road, thinking about the upcoming webinar and what may be in store for us as a group. Nevertheless, I assume at least I will see some old friends. What I want you to notice, look, folks, I'm not going to claim that I'm the perfect speaker. I am not. But you, when I read this, you heard me enunciate every single word separately. There was no words climbing over each other, running into each other. Okay? So when you've got time, read yourself the sentence, record yourself, and hear whether you're enunciating each word separately from the other one. There are micro pauses in between. It takes practice. It takes self-awareness. I won't lie to you. It takes feedback from your colleagues, but you can work on it. It's within your power. The second thing, and this is for people with strong accents. Now, all of us have accents, but, and frankly, an accent can be an asset. African people, to my ear, have a beautiful type of accent. Number one, people have deep, rich voices on average. They project well, and there's a charm to the accent. But the accent can be a curse or a charm. If you are too fast, your accent becomes a problem. But if you pace yourself well, your accent becomes an asset. So first of all, finish your words phonetically. Here's an example. I think I may have said this to Osita during the course when he was in my class. I was saying that to him, to other folks in the cohort that I was working with. Don't swallow the end of the word, because the English ear is looking for that end of the word and you're not giving it to me. So I go, what was that? And then you're already 3 words down the line, right? So if you want to get your pronunciation right, the first thing is to say every letter in the word. Example, memorable, deliberate articulation contingent on consonants, vowels, and emphasis on the correct syllable. A little bit faster. Memorable, deliberate articulation contingent on consonants, vowels, and emphasis on the correct syllable. So you can see that my speech is really deliberate and I pay attention to every single word. I'm not already thinking of the next one while I'm executing this one. So that's tip number 2 for clarity. And tip number 3 is pace yourself. Now, confident people, listen to this, confident people take their time. They know that what they have to say matters. That sounds way better than confident people take their time. They know what they have to say matters. It sounds way better the first time. Why? Because I really believe that what I have to share here matters, and I want you to take it in. 50% of what I'm talking to you about today is mindset. And the other 50% is technique. So 50% is mindset. And I'm trying to get you to think slightly differently about some of the issues that we all struggle with consistently as communicators. I want to tell you this. I am not, English not my first language. So I became fluent in English, by the way, by reading a lot. Now, I do acknowledge, I guess, linguistically, I'm naturally talented linguistically, etc. But if I needed to go and do an interview in French in Quebec City tomorrow morning, I would freak out completely because I've got about grade 12 French. And it is really hard to be articulate in a language that you haven't mastered as strongly as you've mastered your native language. But with a little bit of structure and with some of these tips, you can navigate your way through it. So I think I want to take a quick pause here before I get into conciseness, because that is going to be the next part that I want to discuss. Kemi, perhaps this is a question pause, maybe for a few minutes. If there are any questions that people have thus far, I can answer them. So folks, off you go. If you've got any questions, type them in.
Yeah, there's no question in the chat box yet, but if you want to put in any question, you can put that in. Or if you want to speak to ask your question, kindly signify and you'll be unmuted to ask your question.
Sure, yeah, you can put the little electronic hand up and that way we'll know that whether there are questions.
None yet. So.
Oh, ooh, can I take that one?
Yes.
How do you fill unpleasant lulls in a conversation? Tayo. Great question. Tayo, I'm going to get to this a little bit later on as well. But in the meantime, you're actually asking a deeper question than you might realize. And I'm not underestimating you, Tayo. But the problem when we're under pressure, so let me sketch a situation. You're in a conversation with somebody that you don't know that well. Now you want to make a good impression. And when you're under pressure, I don't know how this happens exactly, but magically we start to believe that it is up to us to carry the weight of that conversation, to keep it going, right? So in a way, we believe that in order for this conversation to continue and to survive, I need to know constantly what is the right thing to say. And that is a major mistake. As you'll see later on in our conversation tonight, Tayo, to keep a conversation going it's much more important that you ask questions that gets the other person talking. You know, asking questions that stimulates their thinking, makes them turn their head and ponder a little bit, and then talk back at you. And if you're a good listener and you show the other person that you're truly interested in them, not in just making noises with your mouth, you've got a better chance at survival. So when conversations dry up, the first thing I don't think about is, I do not think about first, what should I say? I start to think about, what could I ask? I'll get into that with real examples later on, Tayo. I hope that helps to some extent. So Jessica says, naturally, I'm a fast talker. Who is not? I think I'm the only slow talker here. So I struggle with all these points. How do I become better at it? Because it doesn't make me sound confident. I say a lot of words in a short period. I never saw it as a problem till I got a job and realized people barely understand me when I speak. You're in the right workshop here, Jessica. My next thing is I'm going to show you how you can take complex topics and break them into tiny little snippets. Your problem is not only that you speak fast, like I already showed you what you need to focus on to slow down and to be clear, but your problem is most likely the fact that everything comes out of your mouth all the time, you know, for a long period, and people get lost. So I'm going to show you some techniques with which you can make a framing statement, sort of give me a warning or a heads up of what you're going to say, and then break your idea up in 1, 2, 3 pieces rather than a long non-stop delivery. Hang in there, and if I'm not answering your question by the time I've done the next piece, please let me know. Frank says, why is small talk so important? Well, okay, culturally, folks, here's my take on it. Culturally, Canadians require less small talk than most of our cultures do. Like Nigerian culture, there's quite a bit of small talk. South African culture, there's quite a little small talk, a lot of small talk. Folks from Asia, lots of small talk. Sort of don't get into the business too quickly. It's rude. First, get to know the person, get a feel for the other person, and then we can start talking business. I want you to be confident with this, and you'll just have to believe me for now until you've tried it. 2 or 3 minutes of small talk is enough. Don't overdo it. And because Canadian professionals are typically very time aware, they want to get into business, get the meeting done, and then we can chit chat afterwards. So they're very, very time focused, very get it done kind of focused. So typically I say to my clients, 1 or 2 minutes of small talk is enough. Hey, how are you doing? How was the weekend? This COVID thing is a beast, huh? Nice and warm today. How is your traffic coming here, etc. A little bit of that. And then what is more important is how you switch from small talk into the topic that you want to discuss. That is a far more important thing, in my estimation. And then Omatola says, as a listener in an audio chat, is it okay to say okay or yes, just as an acknowledgement so the speaker knows that you're listening? I'm going to talk to you about active listening later on. Omatola, but repetitive okay or yes is repetitive, no surprise. And it also doesn't guarantee to me as the speaker that you're really getting what I'm saying to you. So I'm going to show you some tricks later on in which you can do more active listening. Active listening is a set of activity, a set of behaviors. Instead of just saying yes or okay, I might say something like, that's really interesting what you're telling me there. And in fact, you know, that is surprising information. Thanks for that. That is way better than just right? So you validate what the other person says now and again, and that makes them in a way more generous with their information. So folks, I'm gonna stop with that in my answers for now, and I'm going to move on here. I can see the clock is chasing me. The second part that you can control about how people perceive you is, are you concise? So there are two things about being concise. First of all, is you've got to tell me how you will tell me what you're going to say, right? So imagine Kemi says to me, hey, Marcus, what do you do for a living? And say she's never met me before. We're at a party and she says, what do you do for a living? Well, I could overwhelm her with a whole bunch of information about what a coach, an executive coach, and an instructor does for a living, but I'll put her to sleep, believe me. So what I'd rather do is I'll say to her, Kemi, let me give you some context first, and then I'll get into some detailed examples. Oh my goodness, that makes a big difference, because Kemi now, her mind is primed. She goes, oh, he's going to give me context first, and then he'll give me some examples. And now her mind is ready and receptive for what I'm going to be talking about, right? So the frame in what you say is really important. I refer to this as the frame because you frame where you're going to go with your argument. So there are 4 types of frames that I would like to share with you. You can tell the person, you know, the frame would be, let me share with you 2 ideas here. You could also go, this is a big topic, you know. Let me summarize it in 3 quick points. And you can also ask me more questions if it's not yet clear. Or you can say to the person, yeah, let me describe the process for you step by step. And the 4th way of framing is providing context before delving into detail. So I'm gonna, this is gonna get clearer as we go along, but there are basically 4 ways, as far as I can tell, in which you can frame something. Either I'm gonna share 2 points with you, I'm gonna condense this for you. This is a big topic, but I'm gonna condense it for you into 3 main parts. Or I'm going to walk you through a process, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or let me give you some background before I get into the detail. Folks, I don't know how to really do this so that everybody takes this as seriously as they should. I've worked over a decade now with people who, for instance, are practicing for interviews, or with people who are practicing to do formal professional presentations. And every single time that they run into trouble with their words, with how they explain something, and it comes out like just like a string of words, like a salad. Every single time that happens, it is because they didn't frame before they started to explain. There's something that happens if you start with an opening statement, like, let me explain this to you in 2 clear points, or let me explain to you as a process of a few steps. If you do that, you buy yourself an unbelievable amount of time and confidence, and your explanation then is much more clear. Okay, TT, I see. How do you change people's perception of you when it is as a result of cultural or racial difference? I will try to get to that, although that is not really the direction of tonight's discussion. But TT, I will try to give you my personal opinion a little bit later on. Thank you for the question, though. So, frame first. Tell me how you're going to talk to me about the topic. Now, the second thing that you need to do is talk about the topic. And here it is. You've got to unpack your idea powerfully and compellingly. So first, you want to frame your idea well with an introductory statement. And secondly, you want to unpack your idea powerfully. And there are 4 techniques. The first one is what I call a seesaw, an argument that looks like a seesaw. I'll get into the details later on. The second is an argument that looks like 3 parts, a triangle. The third one is an argument that looks like a domino effect, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And the fourth one is an argument that looks like big picture, detail. My intent with this little graphic here is to show that you can talk about a topic at high level, medium level, or at ground level, just the same way as a plane can fly at 30,000 foot, 15,000 foot, or barely at treetop level, right? So let me talk to you about how to unpack what you want to say in pieces. First of all, let's go to the seesaw. My idea by showing you just a picture of a seesaw is this. We all know what a seesaw looks like. I'm not even writing the words seesaw there, but we all know what a seesaw does. And with my clients, when I work with them, I try to get them to think very visually when they put their ideas together. A seesaw does only one thing. It does this, right? Okay, now watch my hands. Left, right, left, right. Yesterday, today, yesterday, today. Boys and girls, boys and girls. In Nigeria, in Canada, in Nigeria, in Canada. Positive, negative, positive, negative. Pros and cons, pros and cons. So I hope I'm not hypnotizing you here, but the point is that a seesaw does only one thing. It's the one side and then it's the other side. And so if somebody said to me, for example, Marcus, say I applied to do this talk, and I'm being interviewed by Osita and by Kemi. They say to me, Marcus, why do you want to do this talk in the first place? Tell us, because we've got other speakers too. I would frame first. Let me just get to my slide here. I would frame first. I would say to them, Kemi, Osita, there are really two things that really matter to me. Let me tell you one by one why they matter to me, and you'll see why I want to do this talk with your audience today. First of all, I really care about the well-being of migrants to Canada, because I myself am a migrant to Canada, and I know how incredibly hard it can be when you're trying to establish a career and credibility here. The second thing is, Osita and Kemi, I've got a lot of experience working with exactly these audiences. I could put a presentation together for you easily, and it will be a presentation that has been field tested in the past. Please give me a chance. What did I do? I framed first, I told them that I'm going to make a 2-point statement, and then I unpacked my thoughts in 2 points. First of all, secondly. So a seesaw works first, second, or you can go on the one hand, on the other hand, or you can go benefits and drawbacks, or yesterday and today, boys, girls, and so forth. So this is a really useful basic tool to break up your argument in 2 balanced pieces. The second technique that you can use, I typically use this triangle approach when I've got a really complex answer that I want to boil down to 3 concise points. Many of you have probably been in interviews where they say to you at the beginning of the interview, tell me about yourself. And with most of my clients, when they ask them, tell me about yourself, their heads want to explode, because that is such a big, complex topic. What about myself do you want to know about? How much is too much? How much is too little? When should I stop? When should I start? And so forth. Because it's a complex topic. And so I teach my clients to introduce themselves in 3 terms. Let me talk about myself in 3 areas. My skill set, where I've gathered my most relevant experience, and why I believe I can bring value to your organization. So 3 little topics: my skill set, certifications and so on, where I've worked in the past, my experience, and what kind of value do I think I can bring to the organization? Point A, B, and C. Firstly, secondly, finally. Points 1, 2, and 3. So if you have a complex topic to cover, 3 equal parts very often help you do that. If somebody said to me, I'll give you another example, Marcus, what are your thoughts on good leadership in an organization? I could say to the person in a framing statement, well, you know, Bob, leadership is a huge topic. I'm not going to claim that I can do it justice in 3 minutes, but there are 3 things that any leader should have, right? So that was my framing statement. Bob, it's a complex topic. I won't probably do it full justice, but there are 3 things that a good leader needs to have. Number 1, a good leader, to my mind, needs to be an exceptional communicator, up and down the food chain, laterally with various stakeholders in the organization and outside, and also down towards their team. The second thing a good leader needs to have is they need to act as a coach to develop their people, actively be aware of what their people are capable of, what they're not capable of, and put learning opportunities in place so that people can develop. The third thing that a leader needs, in my mind, is to be somebody that visibly rewards excellence when they see it. As I said, Bob, there are more things than that to leadership, but I think any leader should have at least those 3. I hope that answered your question. Right, so you see that I boiled my argument down to 3 core ideas. Now, I'm not going to lie to you or pretend that this is easy. This takes practice. But at least you've got the fundamental principles that help you break your ideas up into pieces rather than it being a paragraph long ramble. As somebody earlier on said, she said, by the time I'm done speaking, I realized that they caught nothing of what I said because A, I talk fast, B, I speak nonstop, right? The third one is the domino effect. You know what dominoes do when you stack them in a row. You knock one over and it goes tick, 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 down the line. I use the domino effect to explain an idea whenever I'm trying to explain a linear process, right? So my framing statement would be, say the person says to me, Marcus, how do you put a seminar together? How do you even start? I would say to the person, well, you know, this is a tried and trusted process for me, Bob. It's a series of steps in line. Let me walk you through high level what I typically do when I put a webinar together. First of all, I do research on the subject matter. Secondly, I do research on the people that will be in my audience. The third thing that I do is I design learning objectives and an outline. The fourth thing that I do is I design the webinar. And the fifth thing that I do is I always do a dry run. And I've had tremendous success with that over the years. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. But I walk you through distinct steps in my approach. Kemi, I just want to check in with you. I know that, you know, we started at about quarter after. Are we still okay-ish?
Yes, we are.
Okay, but yeah. I do know that I will need to move it here. So I just want to acknowledge that I'm watching my time.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you, Marcus.
The fourth technique that helps me unpack complex ideas is the so-called zoom out and zoom in. You will probably, as tech professionals, guys, you can use this really well. You know that tech professionals speak a very specific language, you're highly specialized in a certain field. Other people in IT and so on know exactly what you're talking about, but folks in marketing, in sales, in operations, in HR, they don't have the foggiest clue what you're busy with, right? So if you want to explain somebody something in your technical area, or you have to do a presentation, you've got to, I beg you, give them context before you dive into detailed content. So you might say to the person, they might say, okay, so what is this tool that you're implementing here? You might say to them, before I dive into the nuts and bolts here, that's my framing statement, before I dive into the nuts and bolts here, let me just give you a little bit of background for clarity. John, you know that all our various departments in our company need to collaborate online, right? And you also know that we want to collaborate beyond just emails. We want it to be very real time and so forth, correct? Okay, so in that context, John, what we're putting together here is a tool that very much like your cell phone will be able to do the following things: real-time message, voice message. You'll be able to leave a message that you can store. You'd be able to share data and files in real time. And you can also do analysis of any blah, 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 blah. Right? So I gave the person context of what this tool is for. And then I zoomed in and I told him about the various elements that the tool contains. That is to zoom out, stand back, and then to zoom in and get into the nuts and bolts. Bigger picture, then detailed view. Context, then detailed content. Concept, then application. And that is how the zoom out and zoom in works. So just to review briefly, if you've got to explain something to somebody, tell them how you're going to tell them first. First, make a framing statement. John, let me give it to you in 2 pieces. Or Susan, allow me to discuss this from 3 different standpoints. Or Bob, let me walk you through the steps that I typically take. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Or Joe, let me give you some context first before I get into the nitty-gritty stuff. And please ask me any questions as I go along. The magic of speaking like this is that you break your thoughts up in pieces. And when you break your thoughts up in pieces, people follow along better. And when people follow along better, they trust you more. And when people trust you more, a relationship builds, right? So slow down, break your pieces, your statements up in pieces, and unpack them one by one. It makes an enormous difference. I'm going to pause here just to see what questions there are. So chat.
Yeah, we have the question from Titi, and we also have, I'm not sure if if it's a comment or a question from Prof. Jegze.
So Prof. Jegze says, a great leader is a good communicator, a people coach, a rewarder of, yeah, he sort of restated what I mentioned there. I'm not saying, Prof. Jegze, that those are the only attributes, but typically when I teach my clients how to speak about leadership in interviews, I use this quite a bit because I know that it is universally true. There might be other elements that really matter, but these are three really safe elements to speak about when speaking about leadership. Okay, it's not a dynamo effect, it's a domino. Okay, a dynamo is a thing that spins. Domino effect is are those little things.
Yeah, besides that, the only other question is the one from TT.
Okay, I think people are good. Maybe, I don't know if I'm making people's heads spin with all these various tools, but I'm not seeing any questions right now. I do have a tool that I shared with Kemi with some written examples of these unpacking techniques. It's in a Word document, and you can actually go and practice that for yourself later on. Thanks, Yatunde. That is really generous of you. Okay, so now we're getting to some really beefy stuff. Stay with me. Folks, how do other people perceive you? They'll treat you the way they perceive you, right? You've got to be memorable. We know how to be clear. We know how to be more concise. Those two elements work with when I speak to somebody else. That is all about me speaking my ideas. The other 50% is getting the other guy talking. Being memorable is about getting other people to talk to me. Strangely enough, follow my logic here. You know, charismatic people, people that are well liked by other people, have this one thing in common. They make other people feel interesting. Again, charismatic people make other people feel interesting, and they make them feel worth listening to. People fall in love with you if you show the least bit of genuine interest in their world. So the point here is great questions leads to great conversation, and that builds trust. Now, on this earth of ours, there are only really two types of questions in the basic analysis of things. Let me just take a sip of water. Give me a second, please. Sorry for that. Thank you. There are really only closed-ended questions and open-ended questions. And you'll see that in your handouts, I've given numerous examples of closed and open-ended questions. They're on paper, so you'll see exactly what they look like, but I'll discuss it now as well. Closed-ended questions deal with things and facts, stuff, like how many kids do you have? How long have you been in Canada? How much rent do you pay per month? When do you go to work in the morning? Where is your job? Do you have a job? Which job do you prefer, this one or that one? You can see that. Sorry, I got muted there. You can see that closed-ended questions also give closed-ended answers, really short, defined answers. Yes, no, numbers, and data. Now, the other category of questions is open-ended, pretty obviously. And an open-ended question focuses on the other person's subjective perspective. It sounds like a rhyme, subjective perspective. But what I mean by that is I'm asking the person their experience or their opinion or their unique take on things. Open-ended questions get people talking much more than a closed-ended question. Like instead of asking you, where do you work currently? You say, I'm working at X company. That's the end of the information, right? If I ask you an open-ended question, I say, so what are the things that you really enjoy about working at that company? You know, Kemi might tell me this, Gregory might tell me that, Ame might tell me yet another thing. Osita might come with a completely different answer. Why? It's an open-ended question. I'm not boxing you into a tight corner with that question. So open-ended questions are more the why, tell me more, help me understand better. Which one do you prefer? How do you believe this works? What are some of your goals? Tell me about your experience. It's that kind of question. Now, people are afraid of asking open-ended questions. I've seen this over the years, over and over. They prefer to ask the safe little questions. You know, how long have you worked here? What job do you have? How many people in your team? Or they go to a new client, say a business analyst goes to a new client. What is the scope? What is the timeline? What is our budget? Okay, I've got all the information that I need and off I go. No, you don't have all the information that you need. You've barely scratched the surface because you basically only asked a closed-ended questions. Open-ended questions would be something like, so have you done this kind of project before and what were your experiences with a project like this in the past? Can you tell me a little bit about the decision-making process before you decided on this project? Who else do you think I should talk to about this project? Who are the other stakeholders? Can you tell me how you think this project will impact your clients ultimately? Could you talk to me about potential benefits and potential drawbacks, right? So those are open-ended questions and they're super powerful, super powerful. Now, I'm going to share with you something called shape. This looks just, I'm sure this looks to you guys like a lot of information, but I'm going to break it down in pieces here. Let me just see. I see there's a, oh yeah, great. Yeah, Kemi, thanks for that. So this looks like a lot of stuff, but I'm going to walk you through this step by step. Folks, I'm a consultant and I specialize in consultative conversation, but that doesn't mean that you can't do the same thing too. You know, if you're a tech professional, you should have the mindset of a consultant yourself, whether you're employed as a consultant or whether you're employed as an employee, fixed employee with a company. The best thing that you can do for yourself as a professional is to adopt a consultative mindset. Now, the acronym SHAPE stands for Surface, Hunt, Adjust, Paint, Engage. These are actions that professional consultants take to make sure they get their clients talking to them, right? Because the more the client or the stakeholder that you're working with talks to you, the better you understand them. And on a certain level, the more they start to trust you because you're giving them a chance to express their thoughts, their feelings, their concerns, their hopes. So I've seen this happen when I work with my clients, with a new client. I ask them really good questions and get them talking a lot. And for me, success in a first meeting is this, that the person, when I walk away, the person thinks, I like this Markus guy because he asks good questions and he's genuinely interested in my business. He's not just interested in pushing his ideas on me. Again, 50% of this is mindset. You've got to believe that when you talk with other stakeholders, it is in order to set them up for success, not just yourself. So that's rule number one. And rule number two is you've got to get them talking more than you talk. So this touches, in a way, this touches on the question that I had earlier in the chat of what do you do with awkward silences? Well, you've got a lot of options in terms of the kinds of questions that you can ask, and I'm going to walk you through that briefly. Folks, in conversations, there are things that I call a surface question. That is closed-ended. Your typical closed-ended question: how many fingers do you have on your right hand? 5. Did you have breakfast this morning? Yes. Are you employed? Yes. Or in a project, might say to the person, so how many people on your team? 4. What are the timelines we're working with here? We've got 3 months. What is the budget? $40,000, etc. Those are closed-ended questions. Don't get stuck there. You've got 2 types of open-ended questions: hunt questions and paint. Hunt deals with current state issues. Look for opportunities to hear about processes, unique experiences, frustration. Let me give you a few examples of that. So, Kemi, in this project, what would you say are some of the things that works best right now? That's an open-ended question. Or I might say, Blessing, I'm just picking names here. Blessing, tell me, could you walk me through the process from inception to this point so I can just understand what your decision-making approach was? That's a hunt question. Or I might say, David, I want to understand exactly what were the drivers that made you decide to change this tool. What were the drivers, the business drivers at work? That is a hunt question. It's open-ended and it deals with the current state or the past. A paint question is a particularly potent little thing because it deals with the future. Something that I noticed when I ask paint questions is people change their facial expression. You know, almost like a dog when they hear a high-pitched sound, you know, like that. So I say to Evelyn Briscoe, so Evelyn, where would you like to see this project 3 months from now? And you can imagine she goes, okay, right? You ask somebody a question like that, you know that you've engaged their thinking. And people love that. Absolutely, they can't get enough of it. Or I ask Abiola, say, Abiola, for now, you've told me what you want in terms of the design of this project. What would you say which one of your clients would benefit most from this kind of thing, from this kind of delivery, and why? Could you just comment for me on that? And Abiola goes, good question. I haven't actually thought about it like this. So let me try, right? So a paint question is a particularly potent question because it gets the other person to think conceptually. It gets them to weigh options into the future. It gets them to think about potential. You will see in your handouts that I give you examples of surface questions, examples of hunt questions written down, examples of paint questions. So you will have some guidance there. I want to talk to you about adjust. Every vehicle has a steering wheel, right? Every vehicle has a steering wheel with which you direct where the thing goes. To me, a conversation is a vehicle. And because I'm the driver, because I'm skilled at this, I can let the conversation go where I need it to go. Adjust deals with this. It deals with active listening. You know, so I can say, okay, so I've asked you a good question. You gave me all this information. Let me just see if I've got it right. So you're telling me this, and that, correct? Did I hear you correctly? Oh, okay, cool. So based on what you've said there, can I ask you another question? And you nudge the conversation in the direction. I find that many of my clients are nervous to take control of a conversation too much because they feel that the other person is going to feel that you're rude, that you're interrupting them, etc. But if you practice active listening, where you say to the person, hang on for a second, hold on, you just told me some really good stuff there. Can I just clarify if I understood you correctly? That is a way of halting the other person gently. And the way why you can get away with that is that you are telling them that what they told you was well received, it was useful, it was interesting, it made you think. And that is active listening. Folks, at the risk of overselling the virtues of active thinking, active listening, people with a high level of charisma are people who are great active listeners because they prove to the other person that they are worth listening to, that the information that was given landed hard and made a dent. There is a fifth element, and then I'm almost done. There's a fifth element to shape, and that is engage. This is not a technique. This is a reminder. This sort of almost like me pointing a finger at you and saying, do not dare leave a meeting before you've decided what you're going to do next with that person. Professionals never leave a meeting before they and the other person or persons in the room have decided, when do we meet again? Should I take your phone number? Can I email you? What do we need to bring for the next meeting? And so on. The lasting impression that people have of you before you leave the meeting is really, really important. And if you do the engage actions at the end, it makes a big difference. I have one more slide. And this is a really important one. Folks, there are too many people who just stumble into a meeting, and that is not a good thing. Here's my argument. If you call a meeting, say I call a meeting with Terry, with Emeka, Toby, Bushi, Okimute, and here they sit in a boardroom, I owe it to those people I owe it to them to explain that this half hour that I called them for is going to be time well spent. I owe it to them. If you can't tell your audience or your meeting partners why this is going to be time well spent, go back to your office and go and figure it out first, because you owe it to them. It's a point of honor. Number two, maybe almost equally important, you owe it to yourself to know how you will open that meeting. Because if you stumble and fluff the opening of your meeting, your credibility goes bye-bye out the window. You need to know what's going to come out of your mouth in the first minute. So I know it's easy to open a meeting when you're sitting with a bunch of buddies and you're nice and relaxed. It's not easy to open a meeting when there's a bunch of people in the boardroom staring at you. You become nervous, and I include myself in this comment. When I'm nervous, I become dumb. Let's just put it as simple as that. Your executive brain gets starved of oxygen basically when you're nervous, and your primitive brain fires up. You just want to get out of there. So don't wait until you walk into that meeting before you decide how you're going to open the meeting. Here is a quick tool in how you open any business meeting. You want to talk to your audience about, why are we here? You know, how much time is this going to take? Really important, because people worry about that. They mentally clock watch. And if I can put their minds at ease up front that this is only going to be 20 minutes and I will honor it, then they sort of visibly relax. Second thing is a high-level description of what this meeting is about. Don't get into details. You can get into details in the conversation itself. This is just for 60 seconds in the beginning. High level, what's this meeting about? It's like an agenda. Then I want to tell them how I and they can contribute towards a good meeting. What am I expecting them to do in this meeting? What am I going to do? What are they going to do? And I'm going to give you a verbatim example of this later on. And then I want to tell them, what is the tangible outcome of you being in this meeting with me? Why would you feel that this was time well spent? So 3 elements. Why am I here? How long am I here for? 2, we. What are we going to do together to make sure that this is a productive meeting? You, what will you have as benefit when you leave this room? Let me give you an example of an I-we-you opener. Imagine we're in a project team meeting. Let me just pick some random names here. There's Landre is in the meeting, Eveline, Okimute is there, Gregory is there, Terry, and Osita. Group of 7, I called the meeting. I walk in, we chit chat, grab our tea and coffee, sit down. I say, folks, let's start, please. Here's my I-we-you. I'll point with my pointer as I go along. I would say, so folks, good morning. Thank you so much for being here. You know, my aim is to do maximum a 45-minute meeting this morning. So I hope that that is good with all of you. My agenda this morning is basically this. I want to make sure that we're all on the same page with each other's progress in this project that we're currently working on. So how I thought we could do it is, I'll start. Let me share with you my own progress, but I'm also going to chat with you about some of the stumbling blocks that I've been facing, because maybe some of you face the same thing. And then I'm going to give each one of you around the table a chance to do the same. The goal for all of us is to be 100% on the same page, to know where we can help each other in the coming weeks, and also to know whether we need to add additional resources if we are really struggling in a certain area. If that sounds good to you, let's start. And that, folks, was an I, we, you opener to a meeting. So I'm at the end of my presentation. I know that this was an enormous, dense amount of information. I hope that it made sense for you. And I'm open to as many questions as there are. So please go ahead.
Thank you so much, Marcus. So the floor is open, guys. Any question you have, you can drop it in the chat box. You can raise your hand to be unmuted so that you can ask your question. Abigail says, I found holes in my communication skills. So I guess the question is, how can she be helped?
So I want to ask Abigail, who asked that, I find holes in my communication skills. Abigail, where would you say, I mean, you've got to do a bit of self-diagnosis here. Do you think, let me give you a few options, you pick one. Is it your fluency in English or in business English? Or is it maybe that you're somewhat shy and introverted and you become self-conscious? Or is it something else that you're aware of that you can work on? Please help me a little bit.
She responded, she said, putting my thoughts together and coherence.
Yeah, good. Okay, thank you for that, Abigail. Okay, I don't have a magical recipe for you, but where I try, normally when my clients struggle with coherence or putting their thoughts together, normally what I see is they start with the first thought in their head and they start talking. And they believe that as I talk, I will figure out what else I need to say. So what I normally get them to do is I say to them, first of all, when you get asked a question, there's no rule that says that you have to answer immediately. You can buy yourself a little bit of time. You can say to the person, it's a good question, let me just get my thoughts together because I don't want to overtalk this. You know, if you tell the other person, I want to get my thoughts together because I don't want to overtalk this, they'll let you. They will absolutely let you because everybody wants a good answer. And I would then say the next step that I recommend, Abigail, is I'll tell you how I started getting mastery over this, you know, these unpacking ideas. Initially, when I was exposed to this approach of unpacking my ideas, I made a rule for myself. First, I'm just going to try and use the seesaw just to practice that. If somebody asks me a question, I will not say more than two things. This, that. So you can say to the other person, I don't know if this is the full answer, but let me give you my top two ideas here. Firstly, this, having said that, also this. So try and unpack your ideas in two parts initially. You don't need to have conversation partners to practice this, because this is not skills in speaking. This is actually skills in thinking. If you structure your thoughts well first, your speech will come out clearly as well. So it's very high level advice. I hope that it helps to some extent. I see David's hand is up.
Yes, and Abigail has a follow-up question. She wants to know how many times, if she's in an interview, how many times can she ask that, she wants to gather her thoughts?
Oh, well, you need a little bit of variety, Abigail. The first time you might say, that's a great question. I've got a few good examples here. Let me just pick the best one. That's a good way of buying a little bit of time. Second one, you might say, yeah, that's a complex question, and I don't want to give you excessive information, so just give me a second here. The third time, you know what some of my clients do? They say, I know I've got a good answer to this, but I can't just formulate it right now. Can we move on to the next question and come back to this one later? I'm not kidding you, Abigail. My clients do it all the time and they get away with it. Have a little bit of variety of how you ask for time, and that's fine. Absolutely.
Thank you, Markus. Then, David, you can unmute yourself and ask your question.
Thank you. So I think that Markus has already partially answered the question that I had.
Sure.
The follow-up is more about, so I work with this guy who would always pause before he'd respond to anything, right? So he really takes his time to think, and he doesn't have to be like, make up excuses for the wait.
Yeah.
So I thought that was quite remarkable. So I guess the question is, so in the consulting world, we often, when we're on client sites, would often say to the client, in quotes, we'll take this back and sort of get back to you later. So I was thinking, is that a good thing to say? Like if you're having to spend a lot of time thinking through something, you can sort of say, I'll take this one back and sort of respond to you later.
So let me just clarify what you said there, David. You said the person says, I don't have all the facts, let me get back to you later.
Pretty much. Yeah.
I am not terribly fond of that.
Okay.
Because this might just be my own taste in things, but David, I want to leave the person at least with somewhat of a satisfying answer. So I'm just going to take you to one of these slides just to demonstrate. Yeah, actually, we're on the right slide. With this high level and detail analysis, you can say to the person, as a consultant, maybe, you might say to them, look, I don't have a detailed answer for you right now, but I can chat to you a little bit about high level what my understanding is, and then I'll come back with the details to you. You understand? Mm-hmm. Like if you said to me, Markus, how would you put together a workshop for a bunch of engineers on the topic of doing presentations to Elon Musk? Okay, that's pretty precise. I would say to you, David, I'm not going to claim right now that I've got all my thoughts together to the nth degree of detail, but high level, here is how I put a presentation together for just about any audience. Let me walk you through that. We normally have the benefit of some kind of high-level knowledge. It is very often the detailed knowledge that we lack. And I don't want you to necessarily then say that because I don't have the perfect answer, you will get no answer, right? That is my take on it.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Marcus. And we have another question from Viv. And the question is, if shy in communication, would you say would you say that if learning this skill, it is able to cover my shyness?
If shy in communication, would you say if learning these skills is able to overcome it? Okay, good. Viv, so Viv, I want to tell you this. I work with many shy people, introverted people. And frankly, I love working with them. Number one, I find that shy and introverted people are very often better listeners than most others. So put that in your pocket as a compliment. Typically, shy people listen better because they speak less. But I want you to practice this. Let me get to the slide. You know, I spoke to you about what can you control? How can you be, what elements are that you can control? And for shy people, I add one more element. I say to them, speak up, project your voice. This is not just a little fluffy trick or anything. I'm speaking from a psychophysiological point of view. When you project your voice a little bit, you are speaking in the way that a confident person speaks. You know, confident people typically speak up and they pace themselves. They speak a little bit slower. They speak up, great eye contact, you know, they enunciate their words one by one. These are very practical ways of making yourself feel more confident. Shy people are not shy just in any way. Most shy people are shy because they fear that they're going to fail as they execute the task. So it's a lack of self-confidence, really. If you behave more like a confident person by choice, speak up, project your voice, slow down a little bit, and really just chat with a person with great eye contact, look at them in their face, around their face, not just between the eyes. That tends to make you just feel better. It's like you took a magic drink that just makes you feel better in that moment. And then slowly the ice breaks and you start to relax in the company of the other person. So it's on a very fundamental behavioral level that I try to fix shyness. And the first thing that I say is speak up, speak out, slow down. And that builds a tangible feeling of confidence in you. I hope that helps a little bit. But while we're at it, all these tips that I shared with you tonight help with shyness because there are techniques that you can practice. Thanks, Viv. Go ahead, Kemi.
Yeah, we don't have any other question in the chat box.
Okay.
And no hands raised at this time.
Okay, I just want to, I see. In conflicting situations, the Viv says. Okay, so, well, Viv, that is an enormous topic. How do you bring order in the meeting? Okay. Viv, tell me, are you somebody who's in charge of meetings often? Are you a manager? Okay. Well, the first thing, a team lead. Okay, great. The first thing that you don't do is try to raise your voice above other people. It just increases the chaos. Or put it this way, you can make a sharp noise. You can say, everybody, please, something like that. That is okay. But you don't try to say a whole sentence and an argument over the din and the noise going on. It just doesn't work. The second thing is you lay rules down. You say to them, folks, I know that there are differing opinions here in this room today, but the one thing that I will not allow is for people to shoot insults and sarcasm at each other in my meeting. If you want to talk about it one-on-one, you can do it outside. If you need to meet with me about anything that you're unhappy with, I can set a meeting with you and we can talk about it one-on-one in a respectful way. Viv, you've got to be absolutely strong. You don't need to be aggressive, but you need to draw attention, go, folks, this is my time to talk now. And then you lay the rules down of, we will not bicker in meetings. Number one, if you've got a personal disagreement, do it outside one-on-one. If you've got a disagreement with me, call me. I will have a respectful conversation with you in my office. That's it, you know, or on a Zoom session privately. I hope that helps.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you so much, Marcus. For anyone that has questions that you want to ask maybe later on, you can send up the questions to us and we can forward that to Marcus and get you some feedback. So thanks everyone. Osita, I'll be handing over to you.
Thank you, Kemi.
Wow. What a great session tonight. Marcus, thank you so very much. This is when you talk about instructor, you know, a coach. That is who you are, you know, the way and manner you have taken this session. It has been quite impactful tonight. You know, just like I said at the beginning, this is not one of those techie, you know, topic. And of course, members of our communities, they understand that from time to time, we try to vary the topics we bring on board. While we deal with cybersecurity, cloud computing, we also want to talk about the soft skills, which is part of what you have done tonight, you know, trying to help us with these great insights. It's been remarkable. Thank you so very much. We truly appreciate this. Thank you so very much.
It's a huge, it's an honor and a privilege, Osita. I'm constantly looking for opportunities where, you know, beyond just work, you know, where I can maybe contribute something that goes beyond work. And just because it's a thing that I believe in, A, I'm passionate about communication and relationship building, and B, I'm passionate about people who, like me, took the enormous jump of reestablishing a life on a different continent. You're my family, you know, so it matters a great deal. Thanks for the opportunity.
Really appreciate this. Really appreciate this. And guys, please just appreciate Marcus from the chat box. Appreciate Marcus. This is really a great session tonight. I mean, each and every one of you can confirm that. Let's appreciate him on the chat box, please, guys.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah, and again, you know, that was just like I mentioned at the beginning of this session. I just want to, you know, kind of, there was something you talked about. There's an aspect you talked about that really struck me very hard when you talked about the unpacking. That for me is something that, as tech professionals, if we master this, it's going to really help us a lot in our workplace, in our professional conversations. There was a session I had as well with the community, which I mentioned to you earlier, you know, talking about the TESI principle in interview. How do you, you know, ace your interview? You know, interview is not supposed to be something difficult, right? We talk about the TESI principle. A lot of members of this community have used those principles to ace their interviews. One of the questions most times interviewers get is, tell me about yourself. Right. So I know quite well when I came into Canada, you know, I was in the job market for, you know, a couple of weeks before I got a job. But today, thankfully, I'm a hiring manager in my present company. So from time to time, I do have people come into the company, you know, where I will have to interview them. And sometimes you're asking questions, tell me about yourself. And, you know, sometimes you see interviewees rambling and all that. At the end of the day, they will lost me completely, or even the other guys in the panel, you know. But a careful way, you know, to kind of present that could be the unpacking strategy, you know, where you could say, let me tell you about myself from 3 standpoints.
In 3 parts, You
know, so
That's
you can talk about educational qualification, talk about your professional experience, and the value proposition. That is the value I wish to bring on board. When you do that, you have captured the attention of the interviewers. So at that point, they are listening now, right? They want to listen to you. Okay, educational qualification, they want to hear that. So there you talk a little bit, probably just 1 minute or 30 seconds. Just talk about, you know, your educational qualification and certifications that are relevant to the job you are applying for. Then now go to the meat of the matter, which is now the professional experience, right? Once you're done with educational qualification, you move into professional experience and talk, you know, probably for like 2 minutes. And from there, you move into the value proposition, the value you wish to bring on board. 30 seconds, 30 seconds, 2 minutes, 30 seconds, 3 minutes, you are done. You will capture your interviewers because, number one, when I say from 3 standpoints, what happened? You want to listen, you want to hear the 3. By the time I'm done with the first one, you want to hear the second one. By the time I'm done with the second, you want to hear the third one. So
because you told me that you were going to tell me 3 things, right? So
absolutely.
My mind is primed for it.
Yes, you're right. Absolutely. So it makes more sense and it's been impactful. I've coached a whole lot of members of our community using this strategy, and they always come back with positive feedbacks. You know, so I just feel like, you know, mentioning this as well, especially to some of the members, audience that are listening. I know we've got a large number of members within the community that are looking for a job at this time. Some are in between jobs, some are trying to pivot, move from one job to the other, you know. So these are great tips, guys, that when you apply, obviously there's going to be difference in terms of the way you communicate and the way you pass across your information. Thank you so very much, Marcus. Truly appreciate you. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. I just to add to something that you said, these unpacking techniques, those 4, look, man, I've done a whole bunch of certifications, and I've done a ton of things to develop myself as a public speaker, as a communicator, because I coach it, etc. But these 4 unpacking techniques have been consistently the most impactful way of changing how I communicate. It blows my mind how deeply it has changed me as a speaker and as a thinker, because the essence of this is, take a sheet of paper. What is it that you want to say? Write it out, and then break that argument down in 3 points. What is it that you want to say? Give me big picture and then detail. What is it that you want to say? Break it out in stepwise action. It is a thinking style. You're actually burning new synapses up here. And then the speech becomes more orderly and far more precise. Okay?
You're right. Spot on.
Thank you, thank you, thank you,
Yeah,
thank you.
thank you. Thank you so very much. I know we planned for 90 minutes, but here we are, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, thank you so very much. We truly appreciate you. Thank you, Markus, and have a good night.
All the very best to you. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.
Sorry,
All right.
we need to take a picture.
Oh, yes. Markus, are you still there? Hi, Markus.
Yes, I am.
Yeah, please. Guys, can we all, enable our videos? Let's just take a quick picture with you, Markus. This is a great session for sure, and we want to, take a good picture with you. Let's share our videos, guys. Thanks, everyone. Let's see your beautiful, handsome faces. Even if you are eating dinner, no wahala. Let's see your face.
Sorry, can we stop sharing so that